That's better too.
All right, man.
Flip it down a little bit.
I'll flip this on a little bit.
Yeah, it should be good there.
All right, man. Well, first I want to start out. This is season 2, episode 1, and my guest here is Alex Rivera. I want to talk less, obviously, than he talks, but I want to give a little context of our relationship. Pretty much, growing up, there was Prunedale and Castroville. Castroville is Mexican, Prunedale is white boys, and they kind of stayed away from each other. But I had the opportunity to live abroad for a couple of years and know the Spanish culture, Latin culture, and in cross country, it was pretty much 90% Mexican. I was the only white boy, and I made attempts through different programs to try to unite the school. And anyway, Alex was always someone that I thought was the mayor early on, and to this day I consider him the mayor of Castroville. And if you don't know, Castroville is the artichoke capital of the world.
Yes, sir.
So Alex, would you mind just giving us, you're a dream seller, but to get to that point, what did it take?
Eric, first of all, thank you for having me on board. Hello to everybody. I'm definitely excited for the show. I'm excited and feel honored to be able to have been asked to be a part of a podcast. Like you said earlier, we've spoken about before. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been helping kids go to college and selling dreams for 12 plus years or so. Once I started to get into the game of baseball and start to figure things out, that's kind of what it's cultivated into now. I've always been about my community and in regards to giving back and just paying it forward and just kind of doing those things as they came along. So, but yeah, thank you for everything that you've done and being able to give me a voice and being able to speak about that, so to say, with the people that need to hear it, that want to hear it. Yeah. So I grew up in Castroville, as you know. Started off with working at a young age of 10 years old. At the age of 10, I was out there at a local panaderia, which is a bread store. We also made some tortillas in the back. So we packaged, made tortillas, threw them in the oven, cooked them, packaged them, sorted them, put them in a truck, and we delivered them. So the guy I was working with at the time, he kind of showed me the ropes in regards to grinding and working. And so at a real young age, I was 10 years old, like I said, working at the panaderia, doing, making tortillas, helping out in the back. At that age, there was no child labor and all that. And so for me, it was about grinding. It was about going after the money. At a very young age, I didn't have nothing. So I couldn't go out and I understood that my parents didn't have much, especially growing up in a single parent home. And I understood that money wasn't, going to be coming out of, growing out of trees or falling into my pocket. So I had to get that stage early on in regards to finding ways to make money, right? So one thing what I would do is, like I said, is work at the tortilleria. That same family, they owned a taqueria, which was a restaurant, Mexican restaurant.
Can I just intercept a second? The single mother situation. Did you have a mentor after your father left, or any kind of figure that could represent somewhat of a father figure?
Yeah, it was funny that you mentioned that, because I don't know if I elaborated on that, but growing up, I had a lot of mentors in my life. I had, one that I thank for every day. I don't know if you know who he is, but Victor Cardenas. He was one of my mentors. One of my early mentors early on was, I looked up to Judy Burdett at North County Recreation. She was like a mother figure, right? Because my mom was always working, so I spent a lot of time in the rec center. So we got to know, and we got real familiar with some of those people. Another one that was real close to me at the time was Craig Packish, a big Monterey County sheriff back in the day, really involved in the community, always about giving back, always about, making positive changes in these kids' lives. And he had a group of us, and he was really involved. And he was one of the guys that, it's kind of funny story that when my sister was dating at a young age, she was probably 18, 19, I was only like 10 years old. One of her boyfriends barricaded himself inside of our house with a gun. And so the Monterey County sheriffs came out. One of those guys that was at the house that day was Officer Craig Packish. And so he might have seen something early on where these kids are going to need something, right? So he kind of always stuck his neck out for us, and he kind of watched over us as we went in through high school, graduated college, and to this day, I still see him as a father figure, right? I see him as a person that's able to help us out in regards to connecting and being able to connect the police with the community, right? Because it's something that needs to be done, right? If you want to stop violence, then you have to do a certain thing, and people got to, pick up their slack as well and do the right thing. But guys like that, Victor Cardenas, like I said, he was the one that pushed me on to go into college. Manuel Versamin, another guy that pushed me off into college. Craig Packish was a guy that just stayed behind me just throughout my childhood. Judy Burdett, like I said, she pushed us to do a lot of community service, giving back at an early age. I think in high school, I don't even know if you know, but we were given a certificate for the amount of hours we gave back to the community. I was up over, I think we were supposed to do what, like 40 hours or something like that, right? For community service in regards to graduation. I think I went over 150, 180 hours of community service just in high school alone, doing the Safety Kids Coalition, coaching, doing this, anything I can do to give back, right? So, like I said, for me, it's always been about work, but I've always had different, mentors in my life, right? Those are just a couple. I even to this day, I mean, I learned so much from people. Like when I first came in trucking and transportation, I had to learn from the person, right? So I know I would watch a guy, and that guy is very successful in his business. I want to be successful too. So success follows success. I don't, for me, it was about learning how to find these things out, how to be successful, because nothing was just ever handed to me. So everything was just all hard work, everything from the bottom to the top.
As a reminder to followers, this season 2 is much more dedicated to underrepresented, people that maybe do sales, but the other side of the intersection of impact. And that's exactly what Alex does. But not only that, I look back and I try to get big names from my first season, and I realized that some of the more captivating stories are people like you, and one of the goals of this podcast is hopefully you inspiring someone that could be an Alex Rivera to be one. So sorry to interrupt your background, but I think it's really important to know the hardships after the parents divorced. What your mom.
It was tough. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it was easy, but it was. Now that I reflect back, you think about it as a older adult, and you see those things, and yeah, it was needed. I definitely needed one. I needed some type of guidance, right? Because my guidance wasn't given to me right. I was just learning. Everything that I've ever done has been about learning. Everything that I've ever done.
And can you get into a little bit about what your mom had to go through as a single mom?
Yeah, I hand it to all the single mothers out there listening, watching. More power to them, because it's a tough job. I mean, you're running kids. At the time, my mom was running 3 of us. I had older sisters that helped raise us when we were younger. Mom would go to work, she'd come back, get that second job, but my sisters eventually ended up getting married. There was a time when my sister and her husband and her kids were all there. There was 5 of them, and growing up in a household where there's a lot of variance and a lot of things that go on in that household, right? Numerous kids and brothers, aunts, uncles. And so when everybody it was all said and done, the dust cleared. I think there was 3 of us left. It was my older brother Angel, me, and then my sister Anna. Brother Angel lives in Texas now. My sister.
Specifically, your mom, her first job was in the fields, which is by itself. I've tried it once, and I was terrible.
No, it is. It's a tough job, man. My mom did that, and it was like literally to the day she retired, because my family owned a couple of ranches in Watsonville later down, the line when we got a little bit, more established as a family. My cousins had a ranch, so my mom ended up helping them for about 5 years, picking raspberry and squash and all the other stuff that they grow on farms, and it was for the family, right? By that time, we were already working. I was already paying the rent, so my mom was just more for a hobby. She loved being out there talking to people, socializing, getting to know people. But
and then she'd go to her custodian job.
Yeah, but that was the real job. That one was, she'd go do the fun stuff during the day at the field and be under the tunnels and throw raspberries at people. And that's what just my mom was. My mom was always just like, she's just like me. We always joke around when I was a kid. And so she did that all day. She'd come home, make us dinner, right? But her house was always clean when she came to the house. That's why I got involved with the cleanup, right? Because I always remembered her coming home and scaring us like, man, my house is not clean. You guys are going to get it. So for us, it was already embedded in our house where the house was clean. She got there, she made dinner. And when she was done with dinner, she'd get dressed, get ready, and go to her second job.
Was that instilled in her from her family? I mean,
in regards to,
how did she get that strength?
I had zero clue where my mom's always been a tough rancher lady. My mom's a different bird. Even all my friends, they ask Carlos, Fernie, all those guys, Jesus, they tell you my mom's different. She'll go up there, catch tarantulas. I remember one time she came from Fresno, had a tarantula in a jar. And, she's like, "Oh, don't touch it. It's got a spider." And I look at it. I said, "Where'd you find this?" Well, she was living out in Fresno. She took off to the foothills and found a tarantula out in Fresno. Not scared to grab crabs, at the ocean. My mom was one of those. I'm gonna grab it. She's just from the ranch and don't care. I mean, and it made us tough, right? Because she was tough. It kind of instilled the hard work, the toughness and dedication and all that, and being friendly and just a lot of the qualities that she has. It's what's helped me in my life in regards to helping people. And so I think that was probably the best of it, right?
Yeah, and a little more context to the show. I came out of the womb with blue eyes, blonde hair, born in Monterey County, been in San Francisco County. If any discrimination I put on myself, and so, I can't imagine what you went through, so that was, must have taken an amazing amount of strength, but there's a lot of those guys, and just so you guys don't know, Castroville and Ferndale, they're in Monterey County, and we ended up going kind of North Monterey County High School was a mix, but Monterey County actually is 75% non-white. So it's I'm glad I speak fluent Spanish, but let me ask you about, there's a lot of kids that could tell your story that they had a bad dad, they had a single mom, and what empowered you to be more than that, to go from negativity to now, just so you know, he's never played baseball, but now he's like a baseball scout, and he's even the dream story was took a kid in his house for 4 years, got him a full ride scholarship to
Cal State Fullerton,
and drafted by the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
And
and that was just one of America. And like I said, I've been doing this for, like I said, 12 years. To touch into the baseball, my background in baseball was, it was what I was working with the employer at the time, and he was real heavy into baseball. One day he's like, "Come out, hang out." I go out there, just start hanging out with some guys, doing whatever. And my thing was always to help kids. When there was a period of about 2 or 3 years that I didn't do any type of community service in regards to coaching. I was kind of focusing more on my own life and all that at the time, and my own kid. And when I got into baseball, I was working with an employer. I started getting really heavily involved when he invited me to come out to the baseball field. All right, I'll go out to the baseball field. It was like the team mom for a while. I was in there in the dugout talking to kids. Like I said, I didn't know anything about baseball. It's just the game within the game of baseball, right? The thinking part, the strategies and all that fun stuff that go along with the game of baseball, because there's so much. I mean, I didn't, every day I'm still learning. If I said I was a professional scout or I knew everything, I'd be lying. Because that's not what I am. I don't know, 100% of the things, because there's still so much into the game of baseball.
So you think it could have been another sport, or
It could have been, honestly, I'm one of those guys, I'm a plug and play guy. If I go anywhere, I've always, people that have known me, and I've always been at the very bottom myself. My income, me as a person, everything I've ever done is because of me. It's not, yeah, I thank my parents for what they did, but financially or any motivation that I got was kind of within me. It had to be me. Anybody who ever needs change, it's got to come within themselves. You can't expect somebody else to make a change or have people feel sorry for you. I never felt like a victim per se. Was I a victim of circumstances? Of course, but I don't let those play the victim. I know that in my heart that if you have a will, you have a way. And I always look at the glass as half full, because I know that I'll fill that rest of that half.
Can you give a couple examples of those lows and what drags you out of them? What personally
for me personally, I think the most trouble I've ever really been in was like financial type situations, right? Where, you're working for somebody and something doesn't work out financially. That's the type of issues that I've had. But I mean, it comes in the business and in the sales business, because like I said, I've been in transportation for 12 years. And sometimes you have a hit, you have a claim or an issue that comes up in that business, and you're talking 20, 30, 40, $50,000, not just $1,000 here, $1,000 there. So those are situations that you arise in that type of risk that you take in transportation. It's very lucrative, but it's also very, very risky if you do take chances. So I've been in situations where I've been down on the ground just kind of thinking, how am I going to get out? But then you start to think, right? There was times that I was going to the beach and I was reflecting, and you start to think, and you start to all of a sudden you start, like I said, it comes with growth and not having a father in the family and being able to see those type of qualities, or what do you do to get out, right? So once I started to realize that everything that I did was because of me, whether I put myself in a situation, you start to think and you start to see like, man, this is really what it's about. It's a reflection of yourself. You can't point the finger at somebody, you got to point that finger right back at you. And so for me, it's always been about just going out there and going after it, and all those thoughts and all those things that, came to my mind at the time when I was struggling financially. I'm down and out, and I don't talk about it with nobody. I figure myself out. Like I've been in those shoes before. I grew up on welfare. I grew up on food stamps. I've been at the bottom before. So for me, it was just sit back, go to the ocean almost every other day, taking my drives, doing my thing. And I started to reflect this, what? All the stuff that I'm going through right now had nothing to do. I'm sitting back laughing at this point. I'm like, man, here I am, soft for not being able to get up out of a situation where we're talking a little bit of money. But, at the end of the day, it was my mom, thinking about her and what she did, right? The grind, that waking up at 5 in the morning, cooking for herself breakfast, going to work and busting her butt off in 120-degree tunnels, picking raspberries, right? Sweating and super hot. The whole family's out there. And so those type of things that started to come back into my life. And, the visions I used to get as a child of being at the field myself at the age of 3, I'm in the apple bin, because that was my babysitter at the time, right? My parents couldn't afford to have 3 kids, babysat, and still work in the apples at the time, right? So, like I said, apples, raspberries, strawberries, plants, when they prep for the strawberry plants. And so my mom was a part of all that. So I started to reflect back and think like, man, what made my mom tough? Those were the things that made my mom tough. She never came home and said, she would come home and I'm tired, but never would she complain and say this, that, but her house was always clean. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was just the tenacity.
Is she the mentor in your life?
I would say so. Yeah, I learned a lot from my mom, man. Like I said, everything about her, the way she is as a person, her personality. I get along with everybody, brother. I mean, I don't have an enemy in the world. Like I said, for me, those days are past me. I've had that side too. And it doesn't get you nowhere. All the fun stuff is behind you. And
So let's say and we are live. I think I said that earlier, but you drive home today, and your girlfriend breaks up with you. Something tragic happens to your kid. Sahid, something happens with him. Who would you call in those moments?
that's a good question, man. It depends on who I have to call, right? I had a situation like that come up last year where it was tough. It was a tough situation for my family. But we deal with it accordingly and try to keep the family stuff within the family. We've always been like that. Always try to keep everything, and that's just my motto, man. You just go in there, take care of things as a family. You take care of things behind the scenes. You don't need to go out there and expose what you do or how you're doing, but it's tough. And when you get into situations like that, it depends on the situation, who to call, right? There have been situations in my family where they call me at times for advice. And what do we do here in this situation? Well, in this particular situation, one of my family members had gotten some really deep trouble and he left. And I said, no, we're going to turn this guy in. That's the right thing to do. We're a family, we love him, but he's got to step up to the plate, bro. And then, it is what it is. And we have to continue to go. We have to continue to work as a family.
Who's someone in your life that if that same situation happened would call you today?
Who would be in that? Everybody in my family, man. A lot of people come to me for everything.
So you're the rock.
I'm the rock of the family. Like I said, I don't show too much emotion. I don't go out there talking what I hear. I don't go out there talking what I see, because I see a lot. I hear a lot, but it's also at the same time I know what my place is. And you have that background too, and studying psychology at Davis and stuff. Well, I did it at Fresno State. So for me, it was learning and listening and being that person. And like I said, for me, a lot of things won't break people. A lot of things won't break me. And like this whole COVID thing, a lot of people broke. But for somebody like myself, growing up the way I did in Castroville, small town, and all the troubles that come with the small town, and just being surrounded by bigger towns that have more guys, and it's just you really have to watch what you do. Every step that you take, can be the last one. You wear a certain color where we are, it can get you in trouble, right? So for me, it was about learning those things and teaching those things. Like Sahid, he was a perfect example. I mean, he comes to the house and he moves in, first of all, and he starts to see all this violence. He's not used to this. So
let's get into that, the dream selling. I mean, how are you capable of, at the time you were in Yuma, Arizona, right? Mm-hmm. What were you doing there?
So with that whole story, man, it was, what I do is I go on my scout, right? Because of my personality, I like to talk to people. I like to get to know people. A lot of people say, well, how do you know that? Well, I've been around, like I said, I worked in the tortilleria restaurants. I've been exposed to Monterey County, the way they do things with the youth centers, and, working at Planned Parenthood for years. I got to work at Planned Parenthood. I sold insurance for a while. I was kind of mixed up for a long time. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, right? But I had gone through some of those steps where I'm able to see data entry. I'm able to see how we go about getting grants, right? I remember I went to go do a speech out in Carmel at the time. I was like 18 years old, 19 years old. I go out there and I do a presentation in front of a bunch of people in regards to the migration of the Oaxacan community in Mexico. And so when I went out there to do that, we got $1 million grant, like literally 2 days after. Boss calls me excited, hey, good job. So for me, it's always been about approaching people. I'm not scared to meet new people. That person might need something. Maybe that person works in the same business as us. How can we benefit each other? How can we work together? And so for me, it's all about network. And regardless of who it is, man, it could be a custodian. I talk to everyone, and I treat everybody with respect.
The network is a little bit of what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I mean, you can arguably say Ferndale and Castroville are opposite sides of the track, but I felt comfortable talking to you, and just because I knew, when you see is what you get, and you're open to talking to anybody. So tell me about you're in Yuma, and then I want to talk about this one example, Sahid Valenzuela. Can you give me a kind of a more or less brief
So basically, that's what I was getting to is that's part of what I was doing, right? So since I have the personality, my job was to go out there and just kind of look for players, right? By that time, I was a little bit more armed. I had a little bit more information, what kind of guys to look for, what are positions that were needed to be filled in that team that I was coaching with at the time needed, right? So it was all about finding players that fit the mold of your team and kind of mold those guys and make them all one, right? And unite them and become better. But we had two guys down in Yuma. One of them, they were twins, two brothers, Adan and Alan. They were living in Yuma at the time. And we had needed an extra player. So we were going to play up in Vegas for a tournament in the fall sometime. And they were like, yeah, we got a kid, we'll bring him up. All right. So they bring him up, and I'm one of the coaches out there at the tournament that weekend. I got to coach the team. And then, so we got to watch this little dude play. And like I said, he was a nobody at the time. I'm not saying he is not a nobody now. And in all due respect, if he's listening, but he was a kid, bro. He was 110 pounds. So for me, it was like, he's a little guy. We didn't see nothing. I didn't see him, it was the way it happened, man. Division I was not lit in my eyes because of the size of him. I thought, okay, we're gonna do something, but it's probably gonna be like a D2, but he's gonna go to college. And that's the only promise that I gave his parents. When it was all said and done, that day that I took him from Human, I told him that education is going to be key. That's what I wanted. I don't care if it was going to be Cal State Monterey Bay or Stanislaus. It was going to be a
and
baseball
school. And just to be clear, when you say take him, you had a conversation with his parents saying, your kid's now going to be living with me.
Yeah, so the way the whole thing went down, we got down the line and we got to see the kid play, whatever. We went about our separate business. There was no communication after, there was nothing. I mean, the kid played very well, did what he could do. But again, he's 14 years old. He's not 6'3", 200 pounds, and just a dude. He wasn't like that. He had to work hard for where he's at. So for him, he was a little guy, came over, comes to the house. I talked to his parents, like we were at the baseball game at that time down in Yuma, and I was watching them play. The other kids, they were playing on the Yuma team. And as they were down there doing their thing, the game finished, they walked up the stairs, and I see the Alan, they come up and they shake my hand, say hello. And then Sahid comes around the corner, same thing with him. He comes up, it's like a polite thing to do, right? You pay respect by coming to somebody, shaking their hands. And those kids were all like that, very well trained baseball wise, and very well trained as young gentlemen as well, with the parents that they had in their homes. But so Sahid came around the corner, he came up, said hello, and first word out of my mouth was scared. Right at the time, we used to use that word real loosely, like you're scared. We'd go to teams and be bigger guys and, dudes that you could tell that could play a little bit. Here we are, these little small Mexican dudes that nobody knows about. We're just kind of doing our thing. So we started gaining that respect after time. We started.
How did Saeed overcome those fears? I mean, like internally, or form of thought. I mean, I
don't even know if he gave it even that much thought, to be honest with you, Eric. The way that whole thing worked, and I asked him that, scared, literally, as soon as he walked up, I said, you're scared. And he said, scared of what? I said, you're scared of go and move with me into Salinas, right? He's like, no. It was just the wildest thing I had. What? No. I said, yeah, bro. I said, Salinas is not 20, 30 minutes, Yuma to Somerton, this is where he's at. And at the time, he's like, yeah, no, I'll go. I'm like, Salinas is 10 hours away, dude. Your mom's not going to be there. Daddy's not going to be there. Nobody's going to be there. It's just me and you. I hadn't even talked to my girlfriend at the time about this whole situation. It wasn't until he was in the car and I'm literally in El Centro that I called her, says, what? We adopted a kid. and she just, she was kind of, with the whole situation. She was just kind of like, what are you doing? Do you even know you don't even know how to take care of yourself? And she was right, 100%. Right before I got with her, there was a lot of situations that happened personally, and, going to the bars and having fun and, all that dumb stuff. I just, like I said, when I met Sahid, fell on my lap with that kid, now I had a responsibility. Now I had to be a father, right? A father I didn't know how to be. So she was right.
Saeed's somewhat wired in a way that he doesn't feel fear?
I know he isn't. I know he doesn't feel fear, especially when you go out there. What my job was as a father, right? Because now I'm a father at adopting this 14-year-old kid and uprooting him from Yuma. That same weekend, I was there for baseball. There was no conversations before.
Yeah.
Like I said, we had went off from the Vegas tournament and we never spoke again. It wasn't until I seen him that day, he comes up and he says, yeah, and I started thinking, man, I used to, when my pops used to be in our lives, he used to say, oh, I'll meet you at 10 o'clock at your house, we'll pick you up. All right, we'll be out there waiting around with our brand new shoes, brand new clothes, ready for our dad, right? So I never wanted to be that guy that said, make a promise I couldn't keep. So when I said that, I said, I'm gonna take this kid off. So that's exactly what happened, bro. I mean, the situation was just, it's weird just talking about it because it's the way it happened. It wasn't supposed to be this way. It just happened to be that as he got older, he started to put more weight on. He started to develop. I mean, he was a good baseball player, but just super small.
So what do you think Sahid saw in you to take that risk?
I think from talking to him now, I think what he was saying is Yuma's a small farm working community out in the middle of nowhere. It's literally in the southwest most part of Arizona, but it's also the most southeast part of California. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing for miles. You know, Phoenix is 3 hours, 3.5 hours away. So a lot of scouts don't go to Yuma. They don't go looking for a piece of gold. It's not like, oh, there's a bunch of baseball players. It's got to be worthwhile. A lot of these scouts, you know, they think they should come to me, which is in Phoenix, Sacramento, Los Angeles. There's a bunch of different baseball hubs where scouts can go and you either come, you want to be seen or not. There's a lot of good scouts that go out there and look for dudes like that.
And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but were there times where Sahid in those 4 years doubted his decision to?
I don't think there was any doubt in his decision, to be honest with you, because he would see the amount of work I put in. He lived with me. So I was constantly on the phone talking to coaches. I was talking to coaches early on. San Jose State was a perfect example. Like I said, for me, the whole thing was about education. I didn't care where the education was going to be. As long as he was happy, his parents were happy, and he got to play baseball. Like I said, it didn't matter if it was D1, D2, D3, NAIA, as long as he's playing baseball. That's what, like I said, that's what my promise was. For me, I think it's very important to get kids into education and invest into their educations, right? Because that's how you make the money financially, right? I've already been there and I've lived my life. I want to make my kids' jobs easier, right? I want to make their job easier and give them the same information that I got throughout my life. And I want to give it to them at the age of 17, 16. So they start making those changes when they're young. They listen to somebody like me, they're able to make it. So for Sahid, I think what happened was nobody was coming to Yuma to look for him. Nobody was going over there for anybody. He's 110 pounds. Nobody's coming for him.
Now so he's drafted by the Oakland A's, by the way.
Yeah, so he, you know, at that time, he didn't have any regrets. I think there was an injury that kind of slowed him down a little bit. His parents wanted to move him back. And I was like, no, this is going to ruin it. Like, I'm going to take care of this guy. Like, please just be, you know. And we did. We eventually got mom to be okay. Because, you know, mom was worried. She's crying the whole time he was there. You know, poor mom. We separated him, bro, at an early age, 14 years old. You know, every day Pops would tell him, hey, you know, he's going to college early, basically. That's what he's doing. He's at the age of 14. He's moved out, living with me, some random guy. I mean, even when I was answering questions, it was like I felt like Nick Saban of baseball answering a bunch of questions for the press conference. But I didn't know. Like I said, everything was just so fast. He couldn't say no because his older brother was a good baseball player, but never had that opportunity to go out anywhere. Yeah. A was his grades, and a B, like I said, Yuma. So he told him at a young age, Sahid, if you ever get a chance to leave this place, you leave. So when I came to town and I asked him, he was already wired to say, I'm going. So I was like, what made you decide that? Like, how did you know that, you know, you could trust me in what I'm saying and what I'm talking about? He's, oh, well, if my brother always told me if I had the opportunity, I'm leaving. So when you came to me with the opportunity, I decided to take it because I knew your connections. I knew you talked to coaches. I knew you took care of kids. And I was like, how did you know? Like, I don't go out there publicizing. I don't go out there, you know, I sit back, I watch baseball games, I watch parents, I do what I got to do on my end to be able to promote some of these kids, right? Because I got to speak to them. I got to put my name behind them. So Sahid was nothing different. He was my son. So I had to push that name a little harder, right? Because now it's, you know, it's about, he's kind of like my kid. You know, what coach wants to hear he's your kid? But once they hear Sahid moved up here from this and became a little bit more apparent.
What's interesting is you got a kid like Sahid to be drafted by the Oakland athletics, and you don't really have a baseball history at all.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And so what unique characteristic or talent do you think you have that allowed you to be in the mix?
Well, I have a gift of gab, man. I could outside, like I said before, outside ice to an Eskimo, and it's always been in my blood to sell, to talk to people, to do that. Because like I said, just a long list of, I had to talk and do presentations about sexual reproduction and talk to young, I had groups of teen girls in groups that I had. Not a lot of people know that, but I have a group of young ladies that I'm having to mentor. You know what I mean? And so that you have to talk about those kind of things and be comfortable. So for me, I've always been comfortable going into juvenile hall, talking to groups of guys, girls, kids at a young age has made me this way already. So for me, it was just doing that. And I think one thing about me and the whole thing of baseball was I didn't know the game, but it didn't keep me from learning the game. And what I did is I sat back, I opened my eyes, I closed my mouth, and I watched and I listened. And I would take everything in and started to piece things together. That's how I really begun to understand that I was more of a logistics guy and thinking and always putting pieces to the puzzle in the right place. And that's kind of where this whole baseball thing, that's all it is. It's figuring out, for instance, Sahid, you look at their background. That's one thing I'll do is I'll ask parents' backgrounds, what type of jobs, what they do, single parent homes. Are they divorced? Are they a new boyfriend, new husband? All those type of questions matter because it makes my job easier and it makes the scouts' jobs easier, right? I'm not going to waste the time with Stanford, 4.0 students or whatnot, and give them a 3.0 Mexican kid that, it just doesn't work out that way. So there's a lot of little variants, a lot of factors that play in. And me at the same time, don't want to put a kid in a situation to fail or to have to pay a bunch of the school loans back, right? So I know you hear about people right now, debt forgiveness and give us money back. And, yeah, we could pay those debts off, but at the same time, so he took some of those loans out for school. But I also knew as his advisor that I wasn't going to send him to, St. Mary's, for instance. St. Mary's made a full ride offer for the education part. But how about the living expenses? How about the food? Yeah. So those are all type of things that you want to take into consideration. It's easy for everybody, you got a full ride. There's a lot of little details that go along with it. So
I mean, you've been successful in a lot of ways. How much, and a lot of it seems circumstantial in the beginning of your life. How much do you attribute wiring versus nurture versus nature?
You know what? You have to be able to. I believe you got to break people down, and I've been very good at what I do in regards to breaking an individual down and rebuilding them. Right, because sometimes we get kids that, that are coddled at home, right? And then you get kids that are just super tough. Well, you got to deal with the kids that are a little super tough, a little different than you would with the kid that's a little bit more, less mature, lived less life, right? Than other people, because there's a lot of people that grow up different. So you got to be able to break down this kid and make, some kids you got to bring down to earth.
So yeah, it seems like you take the nurture approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I started out in psychology dealing with schizophrenics and really heavy duty mental disorders, and what frustrated me, what turned me to the business world, was the recidivism rate. It basically was a holding house. They get out of an institution and they'd be at actually called farmhouse, and they'd have to take care of farm animals. And then they'd go get to work in a communal area in Davis, California, and work at Ace Hardware 2 times a week. And you know what? And then a year later, they'd be in the institution, and it just round and round and round. And so I really respect that. I mean, that's an argument for nurture,
Well, it also depends on the individual. Like I said earlier, before Sahid, there was another kid that I had helped. This one was a Major League Baseball. This one was a little different because I knew the game, but I also didn't know as much at the time. But I knew that 93 from the left-hand side was a guy to kind of keep an eye out for. I mean, if you take that piece of clay, somebody that's willing to listen and willing to learn, and he's coachable and he's tough and he's got the body for it, somebody could afford to take a chance on a guy like that. So This situation was with the kid at Heart Now. He had zero clue who I was. I go to school. I start to talk to him. He's looking, who the hell is this bald Mexican coming to me at the time? Like, I'm 24 years old or whatever it was at the time. And he was just like, at first he was scared. He's like, tattooed Mexican coming towards me. Who is this guy? And that guy doesn't say very much of anything. I mean, his name's Michelangelo, and the dude doesn't really say much because he had a tough upbringing, right? He's been at the very bottom, and I know stories about that kid that nobody else does, but because I get into it with him, I listen to him, and he was one of those guys that's super quiet. I got like 2 words to the first tournament we took him to in Reno. 2 words in a 5-hour drive. Okay, Michelangelo, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Can we get something for you at the gas station? I'm with my whole family to top it off. Yes, thank you. That's it. That was it. So it was tough to break that kid, but like I said, once I continued to dig in, I got in, and I nurtured him for a little because he needed to. He needed that little push. But that guy will tell you, years later, after he tries out for the Mariners, he eventually gets drafted. All the life is great, but you kind of think back that life is easy, but no, you got to work that much harder. You're nobody right now. So I sent him down because he was still lacking a lot of interpersonal situations, and for him in his life, it's always been a little easier because they've kind of always given it to him. So the way I see it was like, what, this guy doesn't know how to do this, doesn't know how to. You're a 22-year-old grown ass man. I'm gonna send you to Yuma. I put him up. I found a house. I got them to get him a job. Right. Eventually started working, started making money, bought a car. He became self-sufficient. He knew where to find the answers he needed to. Because closed mouths don't get fed. And that's what I would tell him. I said, Michelangelo, I'm going to send you here. You're going to have a place to live. You'll have a job. The rest is up to you. I need to know how to become a dual citizen. I said, you're right across the street from the border. Go out there and find yourself. I'm not there. What do you want me to do? Walk you, baby, through this?
Yeah.
So it was just, for him, you got to learn. And now look at him. Great father. Son's little. He played baseball in Mexico. Life is great. He's playing out there, and he continues to follow the dream, man. And like I said, it's just all about knowing an individual. I think, like I said, in what I think is in education, we don't see that anymore. We don't see people being taught as individuals because everybody has a different learning ability, right? Everybody's, you got the people that are visual, you got the people that are just auditory, and
it's not standardized.
It's not, and our school system has gotten, it's mass producing kids, and it's tough. So some of those guys get left back, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to watch clothes, and I see it all the time, Eric. And it's
so. 2 concluding questions. Not because this conversation is boring or anything, but I've measured on my first season. People usually cut off at about 25-30 minutes, so they don't want to. They're not going to listen for an hour. But one is if there's a potential Alex Rivera out there that could do the same for what you've done to these kids, that you could say right now to take that step, what would it be?
Just do it. And sometimes, a lot of people, what I see in this business and any business that I've ever been in volunteering, a lot of people are scared to step up because they don't know how, right? That's half the battle. People are scared. Like me, if it wasn't for that guy telling me to come out to the baseball field, and like I said, been away from not coaching or anything for a while, was kind of like, I need to get back and start giving back to my community. I pulled away from nonprofit to make money, to kind of focus on myself and my family. And then after that, once I got settled, I said, I want to start helping kids again. So I got into coaching again and been coaching ever since. But I guess if you're scared, take the plunge. It's nothing in life is going to be perfect. There was a time where I knew nothing. Like I said, I didn't know baseball, not to the level and extent to what we need to be to get kids on to college. And like I said, it just wasn't Michelangelo Guzman with the Seattle Mariners. It wasn't just Sahid Valenzuela, but with him, it was because he lived with me. We went up there, like I said, we went up there, he moved up here. I taught him about the little things that he needed to know about how to survive up here in Salinas, right? He being
a better
young
human
Latino
and a better
player, just a better person in general, and being, how to not get sucked into some of those things out here. Of course, he went to a private school, but he grew up in Castroville. There was times where he had to walk and take the bus. And so you can't, if you're in Santa Cruz, you don't want to be wearing a certain color. So for me as a father, right, I got to make sure that he doesn't go home in a body bag, right? So we're watching the news one day. He sees a 14, 15-year-old kid get murdered and looks at me, and I'm just still watching TV, and I thought somebody was looking at me. I look over, I said, "What's wrong?" He's all, "That 15-year-old just got murdered." I said, "You're gonna get used to this. You're gonna hear it a lot more." And that's sad to say that at the time when you have to tell and explain to a kid that that's kind of normal out here.
And Castroville has a population of what?
We're talking Salinas, just the surrounding areas, just all the
yeah.
violence in general, you know, and it's like you have to make him aware of that, and you have to make him aware that he can't wear a certain color when he goes to Santa Cruz, can't wear a certain color when he goes to Salinas or Castroville. For us, it's different things, like with this whole Corona thing. Everybody's got to remember to use the sanitizer, right? But well, for us, for people that grew up in that area where you have to watch those little details, hand sanitizer is nothing. Washing our hands it's already embedded in us. It's a lot easier for us to not forget because those steps when we go places are the ones that are going to kind of keep us afloat,
Yeah.
you know. So it's definitely been a ride. I love it. Sahid was drafted by the A's. He's out of the house doing his thing and continuing to grind, and we're continuing to be thankful because, like I tell him, this life you're living is a bonus. He had gotten injured right before the draft, literally a month and a half before the draft. He had to have Tommy John surgery. So there was chances where he would call him, you know, I was his mentor, and, you know, what's going to happen and questions, you know, "Hey, Sahid, everything that you're doing, just continue to do, everything's going to be okay. The man above got you." He's always had your back. I said, this injury might be a blessing in disguise. This is what it's going to be. And man, he came back stronger than ever. He's 185 pounds, stronger. His arms working. They gave him Tommy John. I mean, he had the whole offseason to work out. I mean, the guy's come back. He's 185 from 110.
Damn.
He's 185, and he's a guy. He's, you know, he's a switch hitter. He's been the Cal State, you know, he's been the World Series. He was the player of the year. He was an All-American his freshman year, batted over 320 or 350 during the season, whatever it was, and, you know, took the whole country by storm. It was just a story that just, like I said, I've never told it to anybody on a podcast, right? I've told a couple of people that know. The newspaper called him when he made Omaha. They knew that he was from Yuma, and they did the whole story on there. But other than that, we've never really, we laugh about it now, right? Because the whole situation, and look at him now, but it's definitely been a grind. And with that experience that I gained from him and being able to use him as a bait to other coaches, I was able to gather more coaches in my network. And then once he was ready to commit, we committed him.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a lot of schools after, like I said, San Jose State was, we need to see more, which was kind of a slip up with them because they were in the backyard. They had went to the school to visit and they wanted to see more. So what do you want to see? This guy's going to be a guy. And I'm telling you that right now, just because I know a kid's going to be a guy, or he'll be okay.
Yeah.
He'll get a good college. But there's guys that I talk to coaches like, this guy's going to be a guy. I had another kid from Newark Memorial High School. His name's Edgar Gonzalez. Went to Fresno State. Didn't even have an opportunity. He had a walk-on position by a coach named Steve Rousey was there at the time. He took him under his wing, said, "I'll take that kid." Cal State, Bakersfield made an offer. Long Beach was going to drop an offer. And then this guy right here was just kind of like, I'll go to Fresno State. It's close to home, my parents, etc. And it worked out for him and his family. He ended up getting drafted from no offers. Even when he was a senior in high school, 0 offers. Goes into the summer, was going to go to a junior college, gets an offer from Fresno State, takes it. He gets drafted in the 6th round. In the 6th round, he got paid good money for that because he was a guy, like I said, mentally, a lot of these guys that I deal with are grinders, and I can pick those guys apart.
Yeah, it seems like you're a good judge of character.
Yeah. And
read people, which is flattering to me because you gave me so much of your time. But one final question, you know, 10 years from now, Alex Rivera, what do you see? What would be a big dream?
10 years from now, obviously, there's a lot of things that Castroville needs to, you know, that we're continuing to work on in Castroville. One day, eventually, I want to be able to be a homeowner. I've been talking to the people I read from, and I want to buy the complex where I live because that's where I grew up. To me, it's more of a sentimental value. Like, oh, that's Alex's house. That's where Sahid was at. That's where, for me, it's a little different, right? So, you know, in 10 years, my kid's doing great. We're doing great financially. I'm out there coaching still, helping kids out. But right now, like I said, my job is to be, you know, my paying job, and that's my hobby's baseball. You know, my job allows me, my profession allows me to go out and do this and coach, and they don't have to, but they know my passion for it, right? They know that I love giving back. They know I love giving back to my community, and they respect it. So that's why I took the job to begin with, because I knew the amount of respect they had for me coaching, because I was one of the questions that came up, like, hey, you guys beat Salinas High, like, yeah, how'd you know that, you know? So they were doing their research, and it was good that they did, because they got somebody that likes to build, and I love to build.
Well, quick shout out to my buddy, and Will Pennycook. He's been doing real estate forever, and he sold probably half my friends in high school their places, so he can hook you up. Well, I know Will's watching too, so he help out Alex. Hey man, I just want to say thanks for the time, dude. More than the podcast, it's been a pleasure talking to you on the phone.
Yeah, no,
it's getting to know you, man.
It's been fun talking to you and just getting to know a little bit more. And thank you for putting me on here and being able to tell my story. And there's a lot of parts, man, that are still missing. But if we had another hour, we could probably go into it. But
hey, we'll ask on the page, man.
Yeah, ask questions on the page.
If they want a part 2, or if they would just want certain questions asked.
We'll have to do a question answer period, or what?
Yeah, you have to come back up. Alex drove up here from Castroville. I live in San Francisco to be on this podcast, so a lot of respect to him. 2.5 hour drive, something like that. So momentous thanks for your time and effort, man. And
yeah, no,
I got a lot of value out of it. So keep it going, man. Keep strong, and you're changing a lot of lives, and that's why I wanted you to be on this podcast, because I mean you're changing more lives probably than the big names I get on this podcast, and they don't have a medium to speak about it. So I hope you got some value out of it too.
No, yeah, awesome. I appreciate the drive. It was nice. It's a beautiful place out here, San Francisco, man. I got to go to the Golden Gate Bridge and kind of take pictures out there.
Oh, did you?
Beautiful. Yeah, that's why I came a little early, man. I love to drive. So for me, it's all it's peaceful. Even when I go home, and after this great podcast, and like I said, Eric, I can't thank you enough. Anybody who's listening out there, appreciate you guys for tuning in. And if you're going to watch it after, appreciate that as well. Yeah, there's more questions, more answers. Of course, everybody has them.
Yeah, all the episodes are on salesintersection.com. Of course, you can find me on my Facebook page, LinkedIn, whatever, but salesintersection.com is where all the episodes will be, and it'll be up momentarily. So thank you for watching, and a big guest for episode 2, Jill Conrath. So that's coming around the bend, but can have enjoyed this more, man. So
appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, man. Castroville, Prunedale coming together.
Prunedale, yeah, that's the goal, man. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Is to continue to educate our people in the North County area to make North County much better, right? The high school, and have that camaraderie early, and it's been a lot of fun, man. And like I said, we can't thank enough for the people that are listening at home. The amount of support that they've been giving us, man. So
thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, much love.
All right, guys.
All right, guys.
See you guys.
See you guys later.